Hey everybody, it's Region 4 Outreach and Communications Coordinator Matt Cameron, and on this episode of Drop the Tailgate, we're going to go out in the wild and we're going to forage for native plants. Now, my first full episode of this show involved morel mushrooms, and it's still by far been the most popular episode that I've had. So we're trying to replicate that and look for other things that we can eat in the woods or find plants that have other values. So I've got with me Andrew Herrington, and he's with the National Park Service, and he also has a business where he teaches survival classes. Now, we're not going full on survival today, but Andrew, I want you to tell us what you do in a sense, and then tell me why it's important that we know how to find some food out here in the wild.
Yeah, well, I've got several different jobs. So one of my jobs is I hunt hogs for the National Park Service. I also have a business teaching survival, tracking, foraging, land navigation classes. Then I also run a search and rescue team, Team Busar, which does search and rescue within the National Park Service up here in the Smokies. And then I manage a big piece of property up here in the mountains for a guy out of Florida.
So you're doing something outdoors about all the time.
Yeah, I guess you know, ever since I went to college, my entire career has been in some type of outdoor career.
It's late summer right now, and I want to get out and knock around the wild with you. And if you could show us some different plants, help us identify them, what's not safe to eat, and what it could be good for other than just eating. And I hadn't really considered the other values that plants had, but you talked about that earlier. Now, what was that acronym that you mentioned to me earlier?
So when I talk about plants, I always like to think of practical use for myself. And so first thing I want to know is it poisonous, right? So P, the acronym is PMU, poisonous, edible, medicinal, useful, right? So P is, can I touch it? You know, am I going to, example is poison ivy, right? I don't want to be touching that, or water hemlock or something like that. I don't want to be eating that. Next thing I want to know is, can I eat it, right? Next thing I want to know, if I can't eat it, can I use it for medicine? And if I can't eat it or use it for medicine, what else can I use it for, right? So PMU, poisonous, edible, medicinal, useful.
Good stuff. All right, you gonna take us out and see what we can find?
Sure.
Let's do it.
And what you see a lot of times is that, a plant may have different uses, right? So it may not just be edible. It may have medicinal uses as well. Or something like pokeroot is poisonous, it's edible, and it's medicinal, right? And useful, so it may have all four characteristics. But like, the black walnut here, obviously not ready yet, but once the black walnuts hit, black walnuts are, that's one of the exceptions to the calories. There's like 1,400 calories per cup. So if you happen to be in a survival situation, there's a black walnut tree, and it's the right time of the year, well then you're golden, but how often is that gonna happen? So, no, you can't eat them green. What I typically do is I wait till they start falling, and you kind of wait until the husk starts slipping a little bit, is I'll just kick it forward with my foot and roll it back. If you used to play hacky sack, in school, you kick it forward and back like that, and it'll roll that husk right off. But you just gotta wait till it starts slipping. Survival standpoint, mushrooms are like 98% water, and so there's not a lot of calories in mushrooms. I want to say, I can't recall, but there's probably like 70 calories per cup. So, a guy your size, you have to eat tons of mushrooms, but you also have that risk versus reward kind of thing going on there. There's a lot of mushrooms that are can make you sick. There's some that can kill you, and so in a survival situation, the way I look at it is it worth the risk versus what I'm going to get out of it? Now, there's a couple, a half dozen ones where that's chicken of the woods, oyster mushrooms, chanterelles, puffballs. Like, if you know what you're doing, that's fine, and mushrooms taste good, and it's a good thing to go out and forage for mushrooms, just for your kitchen and stuff. But when it comes to survival, my recommendation is just leave them be. Like, it's not worth the risk. So Japanese honeysuckle, A lot of people have this growing around. You know, it's got opposite leaves, kind of got that red furry stem through there and the distinctive flowers there. This is a very highly used medicinal overseas in China. But the part we want to look at is the best part, if we're going to make a tincture out of this, is these unopened flowers right here. But you want to throw these in your thing? We'll take these home. And so when you're making a tincture is just a fancy way of saying we're drowning in alcohol. There's a couple different ways where you can weigh it out, weigh your herb out, and you can mix it with the alcohol. And then there's the folk style where you just put it in a jar and then you cover it with about a ½ inch of alcohol. And typically that ends up working to be about the same. So hackberry, pretty distinctive tree. It's got that gray bark with a lot of warts on it. But during the fall, you'll get these little hackberry berries on there. And so they've got it's almost like a reverse M&M. They've got a hard shell on the inside and kind of like a coating on the outside. So when you put them in your mouth and you pop them, it'll be like crunchy. These are a little, we're not there yet, but they'll get a little sweeter as time goes on. But I like that crunch in them. But they're actually, there's a lot of oils in hackberries, pretty traditional food back in the day. If you find one where it's low hanging like this, you can sit here and you can, as far as calories go, this is pretty decent. I want to say it's close to 600 calories per cup. So if you're here and you have a hackberry tree, you can do okay on it. Here's some more. Here's some right here, bud. See, these ones are starting to turn a little bit darker, which is better. It's a big math game with foraging, right? So one of the rules that I have about foraging is don't expend more calories than the food will return, right? So it doesn't make much sense to go chasing after a lizard if a lizard's only gonna net you, 80 calories or so, and you're burning, 200 sprinting after a lizard. Same thing with plants, if you're gonna be digging up some type of roots or rhizomes and stuff, you wanna make sure you're getting a return. Hackberries are one of those plants where you get a good return because you're not expending very much energy and you're getting a decent return. Same thing with persimmons. I want to say they're probably like 230 calories per cup when they're ripe. Right now they're green. You don't want to eat them when they're green because they'll pucker your mouth. Like, here's all the persimmons growing up in here. You can see they're all green. But when they're ripe, typically after that first frost, you can kind of pull that little calyx off the back there. That's when they're good, but you can see you can get a cup of those pretty easily. So we got goldenrod blooming here. Yeah, so that makes a really good tea, but it's an anti-cattail, so it'll help dry out your mucous membranes. We make a tincture every year, and it's typically going to be an equal mix of the honeysuckle, the goldenrod, and then usnea, which is a lichen we'll show you here in a little bit. But it's kind of like a remedy. Instead of going to CVS and getting something when we have a cold or starting to get that sniffle, we'll just dose ourselves with that tincture. It's all right here.
It dries you out.
Yeah, helps your mucous membranes. Yeah, like if you think about it, a majority of our medicine came from plants, as much as 70% back in the day. A lot of it's been, the compounds have been isolated now, but it's not that, crazy to say, hey, we can actually get some medicine out here. So, I'm not saying like you break your arm, you come out here in the woods and try and fix it with an herb, but, if you got cold or something like that, like why not try something from out here? It's free, better for you probably. So that herbal remedy I was talking about, the honeysuckle, goldenrod, and usnea, this is the third part of the equation. This is a lichen that grows on branches of trees, and good time to find this is after storms. But if I pull this off here, I'll show you. One way this is usnea is when I pull on this, there'll be a white cord in there, and it'll kind of stretch. So if you can watch that, right in the center there, see that kind of stretchy?
Yes.
And there's going to be a little white cord. See it?
I do.
Yep, so that's usnea. So we'll mix that with the, we'll make a tincture out of that, then mix that with the goldenrod and the honeysuckle. So this plant right here is called groundnut. Hopness is the traditional name, but This is one of those ones that when it comes down to calories, this is about 600 calories per cup. And it's, the tubers on it have about 4 times the protein of potatoes. They've actually looked at growing these commercially down in Louisiana and tried different trials with it. But it's a pretty nondescript looking vine. It doesn't have tendrils. There's 5 to 9 leaflets on this. And it's kind of got that, if you start looking at it, it's kind of got that dull kind of green look. And it likes moist areas. Here, we're kind of close to the lake, close to the creeks and stuff. You'll see it growing. It's kind of all mixed in with all this stuff. But see all these vines that are wrapped around this goldenrod here? That's all groundnut. Headed down. So we're going to try and find where that enters the ground. So we found where this groundnut comes into the ground here. You know, traditionally digging sticks were used for digging. You know, if I'm actually going to go harvest these now for my family and stuff, I'm just going to take a shovel because it works so much better. But for the purposes of today and like for my classes, I always like people to try a digging stick because it's readily available out there in the woods. And there's just a little bit of technique to it. So here's where the groundnut's entering the ground here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start rowing like a canoe. I'm just going to start scratching away. And let's see, there's my root right there. There's part of a tuber there. That's probably from a different one. You see that kind of bulb there? It's going to be like a chain of tubers. We'll just keep digging on this other one real quick. Or we'll probably switch to the shovel so we're not out here in the heat digging with a stick. What's that? Shop at Kroger or wherever our grocery store are because, you know, survival and foraging and stuff, it's a lot of work, you know. Yep, there you go. Got it. So you can see you get a, you know, a good little handful going there. Here's some more right here. It's another nice little string. But, you know, it kind of goes back to the poisonable, edible, medicinal, useful stuff. You know, we all lived out here at some point, no matter what your ethnicity is. At some point, you can trace it back, and your ancestors were living out here. So, you know, we've kind of lost that knowledge of what we can use out here as far as food or as far as medicine and everything else. And so, like, what I try and tell my students is, like, we need to look at this like it's our Kroger, like it's our CVS, like it's our Home Depot. All that stuff's out there. We've just forgotten how to use it. Here, you got a little bag or something? I can tell you how to cook those and take them home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. But one thing we want to talk about here is it's right by a road, so we don't want to forage right by a road. You know, obviously, because it's going to be exhaust. You know, gases coming out here, brake dust. But also, a lot of times they spray the roads. And so when it comes to foraging, you know, also if you're doing on public land, you need to check the regulations. You know, a lot of parks will allow you to forage for fruit and nuts, certain amounts, mushrooms as well. But you need to make sure you're aware of those regulations, whether it's state property or whether it's federal property. Private property is your best bet.
All right.
So this is called a umbiliki, which is a traditional like basket you can tie around your waist, and that way it allows you to forage with both hands and fill up your basket with berries, or in this case, we're filling it up with honeysuckle flowers. But this is kind of one of those useful plants right here. This is from a poplar bark. You score the tree, and then you just make the bark. But it's all made with poplar bark. The rope, the cordage is made from poplar bark as well. So that's just reverse wrapped bark, the inner bark. So. Yeah, so here we are in the cattail swamp. You know, these have gone to seed, but at every time of year there's something edible on the cattail, right? And so this time of year the plant's sending more of its energy down into its roots. So the rhizomes, the starch is going to be the rhizomes So what you have here with these cattails is these grow with a rhizome. So this one's probably connected to this one, which is connected to this one. This one should be a nice long rhizome in there. And inside that rhizome is a starchy core. And so I'm just gonna get down here. I'm gonna start pulling this up. There's a rhizome running out through there. So that's probably 14 inches there. Head out that way, then it goes this way as well. So this time of year, what we're looking for is that long rhizome there. And so we'll see if you can see this. When I cut this, what you'll see is there'll be a spongy core, or a spongy layer surrounding a starchy core right there. So I'll go ahead and peel that back. And so what we have here is this starchy core, and it's like eating a raw potato right now. You can roast these on the fire, or if you were making flour out of it, you would cut this up, smash it in water, let it settle out, and that would be your, what would settle would be the starch. But also, you can just chew on it and spit the fibers out. So if you want to grab that tip of that, I'll cut you up a little piece, shove that in your mouth. Yeah, just chew the whole thing. It's gonna be real. Yeah, it's gonna be real stringy.
Don't have a lot of taste.
No, but do you feel that film in your mouth?
Oh yeah.
That starch?
Oh yeah, yeah. Frothy like.
Yeah, like a raw potato.
Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of calories.
So you just eat it straight out of the ground like that?
Yeah, you won't starve in a cattail swarm, that's for sure. So yeah, like from a labor-intensive standpoint, you can just chew it up, and I'll get a big wad of fibers I can spit out.
Get rid of that?
Yep. But then, that's that starch.
Yes.
Versus the fibers. Okay. And so by chewing it, you can get the starch out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it got carbs right there.
Oh yeah, it's just straight calories.
That was an experience, man. I mean, there's stuff out there like these groundnuts that I had no idea were even there, or that could be used to survive on, man. Making a tincture out of, let me see if I get it right here, honeysuckle, the yellow flower, goldenrod, okay. Honeysuckle, goldenrod, and the small lichen that you picked up.
Usnea, U-S-N-E-A.
U-S-N-E-A, usnea.
Usnea.
Okay, and that's for antiviral?
Yeah, so just for the colds and sniffles and all that kind of stuff, you know, usnea is antibacterial, but the honeysuckle is antiviral, and then the goldenrod is anti-catarrhal, so it will dry out your mucous membranes.
Okay, so it's multiple use.
Yeah, it's kind of like the one thing hits all, because like, you know, you don't really know at the house. You're like, oh, I just got something. It's like, may as well hit it with everything, so.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're just scratching the surface of what there is to know about.
Oh yeah, I mean, we just kind of went around the parking lot here. There's all types of stuff out here.
So we're at the parking lot here at Tellico Lake, and we just went up the edge here and found several things that we could use in a survival situation. But you teach these classes, and I want people to know how they can find you and sign up and come to your class if they want.
Yeah, bigpigoutdoors.com. That's B-I-G-P-I-G outdoors.com.
Bigpig Outdoors, Andrew Herrington. You're on social media too? Yeah,
I'm on Facebook. Okay. Yeah, you can find me on there, Bigpig Outdoors on Facebook. So.
Okay.
Yeah, and the class calendar, I've got land nav scheduled and foraging scheduled, and then there'll be a couple more land nav classes, then we'll get into the survival season for December, January, February, so, and March.
Okay, and see, and as hunters, we're out in the winter a lot, and there's not as much stuff growing to eat, so I really want to come back and go through your class and help give me the confidence. Well, Andrew, I appreciate everything, man. I mean, this has been a great learning experience for me. And,
yeah, man. Well, thanks for coming out.
Yeah, looking forward to coming through your courses.
Yeah, man.
Thank you. All right, guys. Well, there you have it. BigPigOutdoors.com, Andrew Herrington, and I hope you've learned something today. I know I've learned a lot, and it's given me a thirst to want to know even more. So I appreciate you tuning in, and join us next time for some more great Tennessee outdoor adventures on Drop the Tailgate.